and welcome to the Culture Cast. I'm Chris Dashew, and I am joined by my good friend from across the pond. I was recently on an episode of his podcast, the We Played This podcast. Your friend and mine, Mr. Timothy Henton.
Hey up, me old mucker, how you doing?
I literally have no idea what you just said.
I'm determined that every single time I come on the show, I'm going to say something even more daft and ridiculous that makes no sense to an American.
As an American, I resent that you don't think I know what you're talking about. Oh, boy. And on this episode of the Culture Cast, we are going to be talking about another body swap film. To keep in line with this month's theme of body swap films, we're going to be talking about 2003's Freaky Friday.
Anna, honey, wake up. Oh, I have had it. Hurry up. What? I'm ready.
For the Coleman family,
Bye, honey. Make good choices.
Mondays are manic.
I can't believe it. It's Jake. He's not looking. He's totally looking.
Wednesdays are wild.
Yeah, my room.
And for Anna and Tess, there's never enough time to really understand each other.
What? Time's up. It's after 6. You're ruining my life.
But on Friday,
You think my life is perfect?
You couldn't last one day in my high school.
Cookie.
that's all about to change. Because things are going to get a little freaky.
Why am I in Anna's room? This isn't mine. Those aren't mine. That's definitely not mine. So, you're in my body and I'm in your body. Oh!
I beg your pardon.
Oh, I'm like the Crypt Keeper!
Honey!
Could you, chill for a sec? Oh, I want my body back!
My wedding's tomorrow.
I can't marry Ryan! Ew! Platinum cool.
Don't even think about it.
Jamie Lee Curtis,
This song is killing me.
Lindsay Lohan,
Great bike. What? Not like I've ever been on it. I'm not allowed.
Walt Disney Pictures presents a movie about what it takes
I can't do this. What do you mean?
to make someone else's dream
Do something!
come true.
When what you see is what you lack.
Then selfless love will change your back. Why don't we
Yes! A jolt! Go! Okay, that was stupid.
Freaky Friday.
Where's Harry's school?
Well, you can walk from here.
It's 20 blocks.
Run fast.
So the film is directed by Mark Waters. The screenplay is by Heather Hack and Leslie Dixon. It is based on Freaky Friday, which had two films before this one in 1976 starring Barbara Harris and Jodie Foster, and another was a made-for-TV movie starring Shelley Long and Gabby Hoffman. This one, however, stars Jamie Lee Curtis and Lindsay Lohan. You know the basic premise of this film. Lindsay Lohan and Jamie Lee Curtis, they body swap, and hilarity ensues. Before we talk about the movie, Tim, I know that you do still have a Disney podcast, and
Sure.
you had never
Yes.
talked about this film on your Disney podcast.
Yeah, so on Without a Mouse. This is exactly the kind of shit that we watch, live action Disney movies, On the Hunt for Hidden Gems. We never got around to this. We did get around to watching another Lindsay Lohan film. We did The Parent Trap, also a remake of Hayley Mills' 60s film as well. Oh no, it was Jodie Foster in the 60s version of this, wasn't it? Yeah. So, yeah, to be fair, I'll just say straight off the bat, compared to some of the absolute dog shit we had to watch for that show, this one was quite tolerable, I thought.
Yeah, it's funny. I had never seen this before, and you and I are about the same age. So I was 13 when this film came out, and I mean, I'm not gonna mince words. It's not like I'm a fan of Lindsay Lohan, and I'm sure we're gonna talk more about Lindsay Lohan and kind of the unfortunate situations regarding what has become of her in the last 17 years since this film came out. But This was something I had completely missed. I had obviously seen the trailer for it. I was probably I think maybe my sister went and saw it, or maybe my sister watched it at home. I don't remember. All I know is, like everyone else, the airwaves were inundated with trailers and teasers for this movie. It was a pretty big deal when it was released. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I remember, at the time, a lot of Disney DVDs and VHSs having the trailer on it. The line that sticks out in my mind is when Jamie Lee Curtis is looking in the mirror, "I look like the Crypt Keeper!" Like, that just rung out in, like, my head as something that I'd seen a million times. But I can't really remember if I'd had seen this film or not. I don't think I had fully.
First off, I'd like to point something out. Jamie Lee Curtis is a gorgeous woman. And in no way, shape, or form does she look like the Crypt Keeper. Or has she ever looked like the Crypt Keeper?
This film wants you to think that there was a weird transformation that happens where she goes from a stuffy, ugly old lady into, like, a glamorous, hip young mum at some point in the film. But there was hardly a transformation at all because she's an attractive, interesting person.
You know, with these body swap films, right, normally it is this idea that the person who is swapping into the other person's body, normally it's the younger person, right? Yeah. Their first kind of reaction is, "Oh my God, I'm ugly now." And it's like, what are you fucking on?
Yeah. It's, they had an interesting choices of cast as well, because I know that they originally wanted to get Jodie Foster for the role, so obviously so that then they could have had Jodie Foster in both roles in the two different films. But again, you would have had the same kind of situation with that. Like, all of the actresses they were looking at are, not ugly old ladies.
Yeah, they were all very good-looking women. At one point, they even had Annette Bening, and then Kelly Osbourne was originally supposed to be part of this film as well as one of Lindsay Lohan's friends, which would have been hilarious, by the way.
Well, I'd also seen somewhere that she originally auditioned for the Lindsay Lohan role of Anna as well, and holy crap, do I not want to see that version of this film.
Well, so that's the thing. Lindsay Lohan, right? Let's talk about Lindsay Lohan before we get any farther. Lindsay Lohan is a train wreck of a human being, unfortunately, and I don't think it's entirely her fault. For a number of reasons. I mean, I can't imagine what it's like to have been a child star, to be acting essentially your entire life. Yeah, I can't even begin to understand what that's like. She also came from a household where she didn't have both parents, so she was a child model from the age of 3. So there's a lot of expectations and things that you and I will never understand what it's like to kind of internalize and deal with that and never have a quote unquote normal life, as it were. I mean, you and I can walk down the street in a pre-COVID world and not get hassled by people. But if you're Lindsay Lohan, even now,
I'm a local celebrity though, mate. I get recognized wherever I go, so
Maybe not for good reasons. I don't know. There's that guy. I see that guy. He's over there. He's looking at us again.
Genuinely, a little anecdote. On Friday this week, I was watching a live stream on Twitch of a local queer disco and was chatting in the chat because they actually played, the DJ played the song from Freaky Friday, the song that Lindsay Lohan's band plays. So I was like, oh my God, I'm actually going to be reviewing this film later on. We've got talking about podcasts. Turned out that one of the people who was also in the chat is a fan of my show, and I'm a minor celebrity in their house, and we'd never spoken before.
It's weird, isn't it?
It's so freaky. So yeah, I'm
it's
not
so
even joking when I say that I just walk around the street and people recognize me.
Funny story. I was actually at a Starbucks a couple years ago down the street from my house, and the person in line behind me recognized me from this podcast because of my voice. So I've been there. It's bizarre. I will never get over. I mean, that's like one time. It'll probably never happen again. But I'm okay with that. Like, once is more than enough. So yeah, I mean, we can't
start doing English accent when you're buying muffins from the coffee shop from now on.
Oh no, I'm not going to do that. But I mean, again, like I was saying, Lindsay Lohan, we can't know what her life is like and what it's like to be inside of her head. But what I can tell you is, not a great actress.
Yeah. Well, I think
she's not asked to do much, I guess, but that's beside the point, right?
Yeah, I was surprised with her performance in this because I enjoyed The Parent Trap. Like, of the films that we've watched for the show and gone back to, I didn't think it was too bad, and I was a big fan of it as a kid. I think she does all right in that, and also, like, I'm a massive fan of Mean Girls. I mean, who isn't? That's a great classic of our millennial era. But yeah, this kind of film in the middle, I just think she wasn't doing her best, let's say.
No, and you know, it's also this issue of when you have a character playing another character, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to navigate that. It is kind of a interesting situation if you're an actor or actress being asked to portray the mannerisms of another actress playing or actor playing a character.
It had that kind of vibe of, like, you know, if you're doing improv and you're just, when you're a teenager and you're asked to play like a parent, like,
right.
The character she was playing was incredibly generic and didn't match Jamie Lee Curtis's performance earlier in the film at all.
Right.
She was just, I am an old lady now kind of thing, wasn't it? Yeah.
Well, and that's where it comes back to the I look like the Crypt Keeper line. It's like, you do not. You do not look like the Crypt Keeper. You look like Jamie Lee Curtis, a gorgeous woman, age notwithstanding. Holy shit, Lindsay Lohan. But you know, and that's the issue with a film like this, and it's indicative of Disney films of the early 2000s, and they've moved away from it, thankfully. It's just lowest common denominator, lazy writing. It's very lazy.
I think as well, like, speaking of the writing, I don't think the writing for Lindsay's teenage character is particularly strong either. So, like, you do see her struggle to play the teenager that they've written because it's not very believable either. I think, like, because she's supposed to be, it's that kind of rebellious, kind of pop punk listening, grunge wearing teenager from the noughties, but also, like, written by adults that don't understand what that meant at the time. So it's all very surface level and, oh my God, like, I hate my mom and I hate my brother, and, like, it must have been a very difficult role because obviously, like, in The Parent Trap, she's just playing, you know, two kids. In Mean Girls, she's playing just a normal, quite well written teenager. Like, Tina Fey, a lot better at writing what teenagers are like than whoever wrote this. And at least I did notice, I apologise, I can't remember their names, but I did spot that it was at least written by female writers, which I did commend the film for. Like, it's not, you know, it would have been a lot more of a sticky situation if it was guys writing mothers and teenagers. At least it wasn't that.
At least it wasn't that, but it doesn't change the fact that it's not very well written, which is shocking and disappointing because, I mean, look, I'm not going to make an assumption any more than you are that if a female screenwriter writes the screenplay for the film, the female characters are somehow going to be represented fairly. Look at Ghostbusters 2016 for an example of that being a fucking not the case. And this, I would say, is right up, you know, up there with a film like Ghostbusters 2016. You have no idea how to write female characters. You have no idea how to write characters at all. There are no characters in this film that are likable or even realistic in the way that they're being portrayed. And yeah, I know that this film is kind of trafficking in fantastic realism because there is no way to body swap with someone even if you want to, but you still need to write the characters as if they're grounded in reality because the fantastical element of the film is the body swap and nothing else. It's still the real world otherwise, and this magic being introduced into the real world, just because the magic is being introduced doesn't mean that the rest of the plot and the characters have to be so boring. And the one exciting thing is that they body swapped and everything else doesn't matter. It's like you cannot make a film on that alone.
Well, I just want to cover 2 points that you've raised there, which is, first of all, saying about the characters being really boring. There's this bizarre notice, which is a trend throughout Disney movies, especially in the noughties, which was irrelevant and completely pointless grandparents turning up in the films. We had the same with both versions of The Parent Trap and some of the other films we've watched as well. But like, so Lindsay Lohan's character's granddad is in this film. He has literally nothing to do. He doesn't have any lines that are, you know, pushing the plot forward. He has one joke right at the beginning, which is that he can't hear or see. And beyond that, nothing. He's completely benign. And I genuinely think it was someone in every situation, someone at Disney's gone, do you know what? There's too many fucking women in this film. We need to put a man in here. And they just make up a grandparent to just like make sure that there is something for an old white dude to do. And then the other thing you're saying about the other point about fantastical elements. Now, I have seen a bit of the first version of this film from the 60s, and the only visual memory I have of this film is there is a scene where the daughter in the body of the mum has to go water skiing, I'm pretty sure. And so I'm imagining that the original film had a lot more kind of slapstick and really played with the idea of these two people body swapping, which didn't happen in this film. As you said, like, apart from the actual body swap, the rest of the actual action was kind of boring and dull and very grounded in reality.
Well, and, you know, they don't abuse the body swap kind of hijinks as much as I was expecting, to your point. No, instead they have an awkward scene where Chad Michael Murray, who's in this movie, and we haven't even talked about it, wants to fuck the shit out of Jamie Lee Curtis.
I mean...
Not that I blame him.
Oh, yeah. But this whole age difference thing is so awkward because they kind of want to play it down the middle. So they want it to not be awkward that this guy wants to fuck Jamie Lee Curtis. So to do that, they make him an adult. So he's at least 18.
Is he? Is he, though?
He works at the school. So for him to have a job at the school...
I thought he went to the school.
Now, you see, this is the bit that I spotted which really weirded me out, because obviously for the majority of the film, you're assuming that Lindsay Lohan is talking to a boy that she goes to school with. They do reference that he's a bit older. When Jamie Lee Curtis is in Lindsay Lohan's body, he tells her that he works at the school and he has the keys to the filing cabinet with her test results in because he works there. So he must be an adult. So they obviously do this so that then when he and Jamie Lee Curtis are having a bit of a thing, it's less creepy because at least he's of legal age. But the problem is it doesn't work the other way because he's an adult who also fancies Lindsay Lohan, who's only 15.
Yeah.
And at the end of the film, he actually ends up with Lindsay Lohan, who is 15.
Yeah. That's straight up statutory rape.
Yep.
It's weird because, to your point, Chad Michael Murray's character, it's not my fault I thought he was a teenager. That's literally what they paint him as when you first meet his character.
Yeah. It's they apart from this one line where he says I work at the school, it's really kind of swept under the carpet specifically to avoid any issues, but there are glaring issues if you read into it.
Well, and I mean at the time Chad Michael Murray is 22 and Lindsay Lohan is I think in her early 20s. So she would have been like, she would have been 19 when this film came out. So at least the actors aren't illegal age, but yeah, it just doesn't make any sense. It's so creepy. And it is the main plot line of Lindsay Lohan's character throughout the entire film is her love for this one guy who she barely knows, who then she falls for, but he falls for her as her mom.
Yeah, and it's got that weird thing of like, he spends half of the film pursuing Jamie Lee Curtis. Then the two characters don't really have any kind of resolution. He just gives up chasing her and decides to then get with Lindsay Lohan. And Lindsay Lohan then is just like, yeah, okay, whatever. And it's very much wrapping up a plot that's not been successfully earned, I'd say. Like, and as well, it's such a false dichotomy because, like, if I was that character, Lindsay Lohan, and this boy I had witnessed him trying desperately to fuck my mother, I would not want to end up with him. I would just,
No, because he doesn't realize it's Lindsay Lohan in Jamie Lee Curtis's body.
Yeah.
We know that it is, and she knows that it is, but he doesn't, and then therefore it invalidates the entire plot line.
Yeah, it's just fucking weird as hell. I'm sure
it's creepy. It's fucking creepy, honestly. If you think about the ages, it's fucking creepy.
There's a way that it could have been done successfully, but this is not it at all.
Well, the way you do it successfully is you just have that character be a teenager.
Yeah. Or as well, because it's always unrequited from Jamie Lee Curtis's end. So it doesn't have to be normal for him to fancy her, because she doesn't like him back.
Yeah.
So weird.
It's of all the issues that this film has, the implications of Chad Michael Murray's character with Lindsay Lohan / Jamie Lee Curtis is bizarre and weird and creepy, and I would say the biggest issue I have with this movie is that, because it doesn't work, and the film invests so much time into it that it's like you guys could have done anything else with this character, and instead you made it creepy and weird. They made it weird and creepy. Like, we're not digging any deeper than the surface level that the film shows us. Like, we're really not. This is not a reach here or a stretch. And
half the Chad Michael Murray story, and add more hijinks. That's what this film needed.
Yeah, exactly. Because the way that they switch, man, magical Asian characters, dude. The magic of the Orient, my dude. Like, oh dear God, like, Jesus Christ, movie. Like, this is the time and place I'm talking about where it's like, Hollywood, guys, like, what?
I really liked that they couldn't even justify it themselves in the script, because, as you say, the way that they end up being split is due to this ancient bullshit, Asian mysticism that they get from 2 fortune cookies at a restaurant. But the actual dialogue that they use to explain what happened is Lindsay Lohan has one line where she says, "Oh, it must be some ancient Chinese voodoo," and it's like, you can't even use, you have to use African mysticism in your explanation bullshit for your Asian mysticism, because this literally doesn't make sense, and you've just made it up.
Yeah, it's super fucking weird, because I mean, look, in all of these body swap movies, one of the interesting parts of the film is how do they get to the body swap point? What is the inciting incident that allows them to body swap? And magical fortune cookies is so fucking lazy that it boggles my mind that that's what they went with. Because not only is the implication then that the Asian characters in this film are magical somehow, because the character that gives them the fortune cookies, otherwise known as Pei-Pei's mother in the billing, played by Lucille Soong, her character doesn't speak a lick of English the entire movie, speaks, Cantonese, and at the end of the film, she almost body swaps 2 other members of the family. And the issue I have is with so many of these body swap movies, the body swapping is seemingly the universe making it happen, not another character doing it to 2 other characters. And that's sadistic and fucking weird. Right?
It also kind of gives them somewhere to point their energies, this person has wronged me. But they don't play with that enough either, because she just kind of shoos them away in the end.
Yeah, it's weird. Like you just said, you have a character who these 2 characters should be going after and trying to suss out how the fuck they get out of the situation that they're in. And they kind of do that about halfway through the film. But the fact that you have a character who can at will swap people's bodies is fucking insane. And her daughter knows what she's doing. It's like, what are these folks at this Chinese restaurant are just sitting there watching their patrons and going, okay, these people need to be body swapped. They seem like they're having a bad time. Let's body swap these people.
And also, mind your fucking business, woman.
Yeah, exactly. That's my point. It's fucking weird. It is flat out bizarre. Because, again, when it's just the universe acting of its own volition, that keeps in line with fantastical realism. It's like, oh, it's the universe doing that, not a character with their own vindictive reasons to body swap with people. And of course, it's something as lazy as a fucking magical fortune cookie. Because of course. Because Asian people.
Because Asians. Lol.
Because, by the way, fortune cookies were an American invention, you fucking movie. Fortune cookies are not a thing in Asian culture. Fortune cookies were invented in, in Japanese culture even crazier, but essentially fortune cookies were invented in Japan, not China, and then they were really popularized in the United States. So Chinese characters giving white characters fortune cookies and then them talking about Asian voodoo. Oh my God. It just makes your fucking head explode. Like, it just makes your head explode.
Speaking of fortune telling, I saw my old mate Zoltar last week. You know, from the movie Big?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, obviously they're a popular thing across your country to have Zoltars at like state fairs and down at the boardwalks and stuff, but there's actually one in the UK, which is actually in Yorkshire, about an hour's drive from where I am. So went to have well, no, I didn't go specifically to see him, obviously. But
I'm requesting an audience with Zoltar!
Yeah, can you imagine? I had a good giggle, though, because whoever owns the cabinet had given him a face mask, of course they had.
I've never seen Big. Is that weird?
It is a little weird, yeah. Good film.
I've never seen it because I don't know. I don't know. It's another one of those films that's just kind of like in my blind spot. Like I know its impact on pop culture. I know how important the piano at FAO Schwartz is. Like I know about it, and I obviously know about Zoltar, but I've never seen it.
It's all right. They actually recently last year made it into a musical down at our West End in London.
In the before times, you mean?
In the before times, but I never went to see it because I have a bit of a thing against like movies being like, especially 80s movies being turned into musicals. I don't ever think it particularly works.
But you mean Beetlejuice the musical's not good?
Well, there's always the odd exception. I've never actually seen Beetlejuice the musical because that never made it out of Broadway.
Beetlejuice the musical's not good. It's
really? I've heard the opposite. I've heard the polar opposite.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm kind of in a sounding chamber because a lot of our close friends, my wife and I, they're theater majors, and so like right. I guess they know a lot more about it than I do from like a technical standpoint and kind of a writing standpoint. Because I mean, I know about film, not about stage. So yeah. They're like, yeah, this isn't good. And I'm like, it's whatever. I mean, the guy who plays Beetlejuice seems to be into it, and there's that at least. But
I'm the kind of fan of musicals where I have to like experience all of it together. Like I know like often, especially like if a show starts in on your side of the pond and then makes its way over, like obviously the soundtracks end up over here a lot earlier, but I can't listen to musical soundtracks out of context. Sure. I never enjoy the songs on their own. I have to see.
Even after you've seen it?
No, that's different. Like I have to get everything in context to understand the emotions and the plot and everything like that. And then after that, that's when I will enjoy a soundtrack.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, something like Hamilton was the same thing. It's like, I never fucking saw Hamilton, guys. So like trying to push the Hamilton soundtrack on me, like I have, like you said, I have no fucking frame of reference here. So
yeah,
I liked parts of it once I finally got around to watching Hamilton. But yeah, I was like, don't try to play this for me. I have no idea the context of any of this shit. What are you doing?
And the people that are into musical soundtracks are just so into musical soundtracks, and it drives me mad sometimes.
I get it. I totally get it. But hey, everybody's got something, right?
I do remember, like, my ex-partner Kirsty, there was a really fun thing. Like, we're both drama kids, so she was never a Buffy fan, but we obviously listened to the soundtrack of Once More with Feeling loads and loads and loads and loads and loads as kids. And then I was watching Buffy through with her for her first time about 5 years ago. We got to the musical episode, and it's the bit where Buffy's singing about how she was in heaven, and Kirsty absolutely burst into tears and was like, I have been listening to this song for decades. I had no idea that Buffy literally had been to hell. And so, like, this is what I'm talking about, is like she had the frame of reference of the song, but it didn't mean anything to her because she hadn't seen it in context. And like she was even though she knew the words, she absolutely broke down crying because she suddenly had that emotion.
I mean, it's just like the song at the end of this film. I had so much emotion for Lindsay Lohan's song Ultimate.
Oh, dear.
A song about a old man in her life who wants to fuck her and her mom.
Yeah.
In context, it's creepy. Out of context, it's still creepy.
Yeah, I mean, it's musically, it's very of its time, isn't it? It's like a very pop punk heavy soundtrack. But to be honest, there's some absolute bangers on this soundtrack.
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, early 2000.
Yeah, American Hi-Fi. They talk about the Hives a lot, even though they clearly couldn't afford any of the Hives songs for the soundtrack.
They got Simple Plan in there and Bowling for Soup.
And Andrew WK. Speaking of Andrew WK, I like the song that they use is She Is Beautiful, which is from his album I Get Wet. One of the weirdest special edition vinyls I've ever bought is the 10-year anniversary edition of I Get Wet. The second vinyl in the set, Andrew WK wanted to do something really special for it, and he decided what he wanted to do was try his best to capture what him performing live feels like to him personally. So to do that, he put a microphone inside a human skull, inside a wooden box, on the front of the stage while he was performing, and recorded that onto an LP. And it is fucking trash. It sounds as disgraceful as you can imagine. It's completely like echoey, buggy. He might as well have recorded it on like, you know, a dictaphone stuck up a pigeon or something like that.
You should have recorded it by sticking the microphone in his own asshole, is what you're saying.
Yeah. And you can hear every time somebody runs on the stage and kicks the box over. It is the biggest waste of a vinyl I've ever known.
Hey, it was a good idea, though.
Yeah.
It's weird that Andrew WK is on this soundtrack.
A little bit, yeah, because compared to all the other artists, he's a bit more out there.
Yeah, I mean, Simple Plan, Bowling for Soup. Like, Jesus Christ. Ashley Simpson is on there. Oh.
They kind of do. They try and be clever with it, and like they use a lot of pop punk kind of covers of 60s
yeah,
songs.
It's super weird.
Yeah, and especially at the beginning, they kind of juxtapose it because I can't remember which song it is, but they.
It's Happy Together by the Turtles.
Happy Together. They start with the original, and then they cut in with the pop punk cover. And it's obviously kind of showing that juxtaposition of the two eras of the characters and stuff. But I mean, it's a bit in your face, but it works. I quite liked the soundtrack, to be fair, but that's because I'm a big pop punk nerd.
I mean, I'm with you. It was a little early for Fall Out Boy. So if it had been 3 years later, they probably would have had some sweet From Under the Cork Tree on the album. I like the idea that Lindsay Lohan's character originally was going to be written as a goth character. Because I would have totally been here for that movie, where Lindsay Lohan is really playing against type as a goth girl, as opposed to effectively in this film just playing herself.
There's kind of little hints that there being a bit of goth going on, because like there's a lot of Emily the Strange posters in the bedroom and stuff. Like it's a bit weird, isn't it?
It is. It's weird in as much as that would have been, I think, a more interesting character. Kind of,
yeah.
I say interesting character. That would have been a more interesting dichotomy between the two characters, because that character would have been so different from her mom that then it's like, okay, I understand that you really don't get me, and here's why, as opposed to I'm just kind of a spoiled teenager.
Yeah, that's it. There isn't enough conflict at the beginning, is there? Like,
no, Mum
is very accommodating to her. She doesn't really have that much to fight against. One thing that I did think of, though, like, this is a thing that I'm doing this year, and I've noticed I keep doing a lot, which is there are things that happen in American movies that are so fucking weird to me, and I've never challenged them. So I started on Twitter. Anytime anything weird happens, I'm like, I go on Twitter and I say, hey, Americans, is this a thing that actually happens over there in your country? And this is the punishment of removing a door off a teenager's bedroom.
Yes.
This feels crazy to me.
We actually have a family. A woman that my wife works with did that to her daughter.
What the fuck, America?
This friend of my wife, her daughter was sneaking out at night, so she took the door off the hinges. I don't get it. I mean, that's fucked up, even for like even if you have like a problem child, quote unquote, whatever the hell that means to you is going to be different to everyone, the definition of a problem child. But we know someone who's actually done it. So, yeah, it's fucked up. It's real fucked up. I do not agree with it. I would, my wife and I plan on having one kid at least, and I would never do that. And that's fucking horrifying. Like, give the kids some privacy. They're going to resent you more if you take the door off the hinges. Holy shit.
Absolutely. Any age, privacy is a human right, for fuck's sake. Like, it's crazy. Like, I've never known anything like that happen over here. And it's something that we see, like, as a British audience, we see it in films and things so often that, like, we just kind of assume it's a normal practice in America. And there's so many other little quirks that pop up so often in films that I've finally got to a point where I'm just like, anytime I see them, I'm like, is this real or is this just a trope? Like,
you mean like driving on the right-hand side of the road?
Oh yeah, what the fuck's that about?
Yeah. What? Do you guys actually do this or what? Is this a real thing or what?
That's where the other cars go. That's dangerous.
Yeah.
How do you even navigate a roundabout? Oh wait, you don't have
wait, you know what's funny? In the city of Lincoln, Nebraska, we have so many fucking roundabouts. There's a street behind our house that kind of connects one of the major thoroughfares to the other. There are 7 roundabouts on that road. In a 2-mile span, there's 7 roundabouts. So I don't want to hear about roundabouts, man. I have to deal with them on a daily fucking basis. But people here don't know how to use it. Let's talk about Mark Harmon for a second. Why is he in this movie?
That's the stepdad, right?
Yeah. Mr. Jag, I believe. Or NCIS? Is it NCIS or JAG?
Oh, I don't know. I don't watch any of your procedural rubbish.
Well, clearly I don't either. It is JAG and NCIS. He was on both.
Yeah. He, again, this is a weird kind of character because at the end of the film, we kind of act as if we're resolving some kind of conflict between the stepdad and Lindsay Lohan, but we've never actually seen conflict between them. They don't even interact.
They talk about the conflict. They never show it.
Yeah. They don't do a very good job of setting him up as a character at all. He just seems really fine and nice. Like,
he seems out of his element with the rest of them because he's a genuinely good human being, it would seem, who's like, I don't understand why she doesn't like me. I'm trying to make her like me, but I'm not trying to overdo it. I want her to like me on her own terms, which is so different from, like, most step-parent characters in film.
Yeah, and it's also got that thing of, there's a deceased dad, because of course there is, it's a Disney film, there has to be a deceased parent somewhere. But again, they don't play enough on dad not being around either. So, like, even if they'd spent more time mentioning and bringing up dad so that then you can understand there being a resentment for a stepdad because just from the virtue of not being dad. But they don't even talk about dad.
No, they instead have scenes devoted to Lindsay Lohan as Jamie Lee Curtis, effectively tanking her mom's psychology business or as a therapist. Can you imagine being the client of Jamie Lee Curtis and her, body swapping? The character played by Willie Garson is like manic and needs actual help.
It's that real kind of noughties / kids film version of people that need psychiatry are crazy.
It's like, this is not how people like this actually are, because I've been to therapy and I wasn't like that. And I know other people who have gone to therapy and aren't like that. So what the fuck broad brush are you painting all of these characters with? It's to your point, it is this weird children logic. Like, baby's first therapy. Like, oh, people who go to therapy are nuts. Like, what?
These people, it's not very well handled. I think the idea is like they wanted Jamie Lee Curtis to have quite a high profile job that Lindsay Lohan can kind of damage, but obviously, like, you can't have her as like a fucking surgeon or something because that ends up killing people. So they kind of downplay the kind of needs of her clients so that it just seems like, she's essentially, they've had a bad day, but they'll get over it from having met her. Like,
it's odd. You'll figure it out eventually. Like, you don't really need me. Like, what? Why am I paying you? What is going on here? It's it's weird because it's in a Disney movie. It's weird because it's in a Disney movie for children, for teenagers. And it's completely unnecessary and serves no purpose in the plot other than the scene with Dinah Spivey Waters kind of on the talk show where Lindsay Lohan as Jamie Lee Curtis kind of goes nuts and is just like, do whatever you want. It's like, what the fuck?
I was going to say it kind of works, but yeah, whatever.
It kind of works. But it would work more if you hadn't seen the scenes with Willie Garson and some of her other patients that are being treated so bizarrely. And like, how is Jamie Lee Curtis going to like justify to them what happened? Like, oh, by the way, my daughter had swapped into my body. Oh, I'm clearly the one who needs therapy. Okay, never mind. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just bizarre.
The same woman that's giving all these people advice for their own mental health, and she's taking her own daughter's door off the fucking hinges at the same time. Like.
Yeah, like you don't need to be telling other people what they need in their lives if you don't have your life together. But the other character I wanted to talk about that I found it just again a bizarre choice in a film full of bizarre choices when taken out of context or in context with some of them. The Stephen Tobolowsky character as the professor, who seems very, to quote something that the both of us I think would immediately get, he's very Snape-esque.
Yeah.
Right?
We're talking the teacher, yeah?
Yeah. He seems very Snape-esque from Harry Potter. Like, I'm going to take out my aggression on you because of what your mom did. Like, what the fuck is this shit even?
Yeah, it's not good. But, plot-wise it kind of works, because at least then, you know, there's always that assumption that when a kid tells you that the teacher is picking on them, that actually they're just not working hard. And at least you do get Jamie Lee Curtis's character then going in and being like, oh, literally this guy is picking on her. So that kind of, there are little bits of the film that work plot-wise, but
yeah, but at the same time, Tim, let's not kid ourselves. You and I were both in high school around the time this film came out. If you were in high school when this film came out, as was I, you and I both know that we had teachers who would send home report cards and other pieces of information that was meant to go to our parents, and they would also have met the teacher at some point, the parent would have. So how did Jamie Lee Curtis not know about this?
Yeah, that's a good point.
It makes, I mean, again, I'm not trying to pick the film apart, and I'm not, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think I'm even doing the bare minimum of analysis to jump to that conclusion, because that's just fucking lazy.
Yeah, fine.
Tim, you've beaten me down enough. Leave me be. Stop. You're killing him. It's already dead.
Look, there's no point in defending anything that happens in this film. I'm not going to bother.
No, well, it's just fucking lazy. It's just fucking lazy. And what does that side plot even add to the film?
It adds that eventually they'll see eye to eye because they'll realize that she was right all along.
Boy, you really are giving the film a little bit more credit than I would.
I've watched too many fucking Disney films. I know how they work.
Oh, I mean, I have too. It's just I understand giving them a pass, but I can't give them a pass when it's something this lazy. And it is that lazy. I mean, again, at the center of the film, you have the back and forth between Jamie Lee Curtis as Lindsay Lohan and Lindsay Lohan as Jamie Lee Curtis. And that, I think, works rather well. The interplay between the two of them, it's not always believable because, again, like you mentioned, the characters are written rather poorly. They're very poor stereotypes that are meant to be fully fledged characters, and they aren't. But as soon as you start getting other plot lines involved with the characters, you really watch the film start to fall apart because nothing that goes on, none of the issues or struggles that the characters have to overcome are remotely interesting.
No, I did notice as well that I don't think like Lindsay Lohan's character has two female best friends. I don't think we hear either of their names uttered all throughout the film because they are completely just two-dimensional for her to have friends and also for her to have a band, because they never ever speak about anything other than band practice, I don't believe. And then there's 2 male members of the band that don't ever say a line at all.
Yeah, they never have a single line in the entire movie. Isn't that great?
They're just there because they need a bassist and they need a drummer. Like, that is their sole purpose in the film.
Yeah, the male characters in this film are really underutilized. I mean, again, we've already talked about Mark Harmon, the grandfather who, like you said, why are you in this fucking movie? What was the point?
Just so there's still more men than women. That's very important.
Sure. And then you have the final male character of the film, played by Ryan Malgarini, who is the brother of Lindsay Lohan. And his character is a complete jackass, stereotypical brother character.
Little brat. But
Yeah.
then apparently, like, he really likes his sister, really.
Because
You
of
always hurt the
course.
ones you love.
Well, he thinks she's the coolest sister ever, and it's like, what? None of this is how any of this works in real life. The only time any of this ever works this way is in a Disney movie. Like,
Yeah.
this is all Disney movie logic, which is perfectly fine because it is a Disney movie, but it's so overutilized by Disney that you can't help but roll your eyes when you see it pop up over and over and over again in every live action Disney movie. Like, the tropes are always there. I mean, let me just throw out an example. Fucking Halloween Town. I love Halloween Town. I have no problem admitting it. It is one of my favorite things that Disney has ever done. But do you have a similar character in that film? A younger brother who's annoyed by his sister or sisters, but it turns out he actually respects and loves her. And it's like, oh my God. Like, Jesus Christ. This is so lazy. It's just fucking lazy.
What I always think is, like, what's the point of having that conflict? Because it's never very enjoyable. Just have them like each other. Just have them get along. Like,
Yeah.
That works better. You can have a better camaraderie. You can have a better relationship between the characters. Just have people get along.
Is it weird in this movie, compared to other body swap movies, is it weird that no other character, other than the mother and daughter at the Chinese restaurant, is it weird that no other characters know that they've body swapped? Isn't that like another part of these body swap movies is like telling someone, oh, by the way, we swapped?
I think that's kind of partly because the film is so just grounded in boring, mundane going to school and going to work. Because nothing crazy actually happens. They manage to get away with the conceit for the whole fucking film because nobody cares. They just let them get on with it. So what if Lindsay Lohan's failed the test? Never mind. So what if she's had Jamie Lee Curtis has had a bad day at work? They'll get over it, and everyone just kind of leaves them to it. It's so weird.
I wish the film had given Jamie Lee Curtis and Lindsay Lohan's characters more to do.
Yes, absolutely.
Because a mundane body swap film where both of them live in the same house, don't hate each other so much that they're completely estranged. Like, it's not as interesting as a film where maybe there's some stakes, maybe there's a big event that there is a big event that they both participate in, but them being body swapped doesn't change anything. Other than the horrifying fact that if they had been body swapped and Jamie Lee Curtis and Mark Harmon had gotten married, Jamie Lee Curtis or Lindsay Lohan and Jamie Lee Curtis's body would have gotten plowed by Mark Harmon. That's it. That honest to God, that's what the film's stakes feel like. We need to figure out a way to unbody swap before you get fucked by Mark Harmon.
Speaking of this event that they're leading up to, which is the fact that it's going to be the wedding rehearsal dinner, the whole film is leading up to the wedding rehearsal dinner, and Lindsay Lohan can't go to the Battle of the Bands because of the wedding rehearsal dinner. And Jamie Lee Curtis goes off on one so many times about how it's the one night of her life where she really needs her daughter to be there. That's not how weddings work.
No. As someone who is married, who has had a wedding, the wedding rehearsal dinner is a time for people who didn't know each other to get to meet one another. That is literally what it is there for.
You're getting married the day after.
Yeah.
Chill the fuck out. So again, back to lazy writing. I don't understand why it couldn't have been the wedding. It could have been a lot higher stakes for everybody.
Yeah.
If Lohan needed to take 1 hour out to go to the House of Blues from the wedding.
And again, the stakes in that situation are so you don't get boned by Mark Harmon. I Again, that's the issue with this movie is they refuse to outright say what the stakes are, so I'll say it for them.
So gross, yeah.
It is. The stakes of the movie are Mark Harmon's going to fuck the shit out of your mom, and you happen to be stuck in your mom's body. Wouldn't that be gross if you get fucked by your mom's new husband? That's the stakes of the movie. Like, why don't you just come out and say it? Because you can't, because it's a 2003 Disney film made for young adults. So maybe don't go with that as the fucking plot. Don't go with that as the driving force behind the film. Because if you can't say it, then it's just going to be readily apparent to everyone without you saying it.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, look, if this were a film for adults, you would have seen that. If this were a PG-13 film, you would have seen that. But it's a PG film, so they don't bring it up. But I mean, there are tons of body swap films out there where that is one of the big aspects of it is, oh, I get to, bang my mom's husband, or, oh, I get to look at myself naked in the mirror. The thing that always jumps to mind when I think about body swap that's done right is there's the body swap kind of sequence in Scooby-Doo. And, the first thing that Fred in Daphne's body does is he goes like, I can look at myself naked. Like, yeah, no shit. Like, it's not perverted because it's just reality. Like, that's the first thing any of us would do if you were in someone else's body, as long as it's not your parents, is go look at yourself naked in the mirror and be like, huh, that's weird. Like, that's different.
The funniest one that I always think of is there's an episode of the sci-fi Farscape where there's a body swap episode, and the main character, John, he ends up in Aaron, a female's body, and he literally takes his top off and like jiggles his tits about. But they actually added in the sound effect of the tits slapping together, and it's just freaking hilarious. And obviously, she then catches him in the middle of doing it.
Of course, but like that, like turning into it more is what makes body swaps so fun. Is that you let the characters fully embrace the fact that they are body swapped. And what would you like? What would it be like to be in your parents' body for a day? Like that's the question that the original author for Freaky Friday is effectively asking. Mary Rogers asks, what would it be like to be in your parents' shoes for a day? And this film does not address that question. It doesn't answer that question. It frankly skirts the issue the entire film.
We get the most PG little scene when they first swap, which is Jamie Lee Curtis in Lindsay Lohan's body grabs her ass. And that's the most PG thing that they can do. They can't get any riskier than that. She just grabs her ass.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's not my bum, governor.
Don't grab me there. I mean, it's weird. I mean, if it were a PG-13 movie, would she have grabbed her boobs, I guess?
Well, I would have thought so. Yeah, maybe.
Man.
There is a film that we actually watched for Without a Mouse. We did, every so often we would do a decombobulated episode, which is where we would watch a Disney Channel original movie. And they had one from a few years ago called The Swap. And that was about two teenagers in high school. And they leaned into it more than this film does, because they did a lot of, like, they were both on sports teams, if I'm remembering right. So there was a lot of, like, locker room and shower room stuff. And they really played into that teenage embarrassment of each other's bodies. The way that they handled it, which kind of worked, was that they were both very embarrassed about being in the other person's body. Like, there wasn't any enjoyment from it. It was comical from the fact that they both hated being in each other's bodies. And that's the kind of way you do it and make it still kind of PG-13, rather than like, hey, I've got tits, I'm going to look at them.
Yeah, it's, again, to me, this film it misses the mark at every opportunity to try and do something interesting with the plot device that they've decided to go with, and
made me want to watch the original. Because as I say, I apologize because you gave me the choice of which one we should review, and I went for the Lilo one because I've not seen it. But all I was thinking the whole time was, the other one's got fucking water skis in it. I need to be watching that. So after tonight, I'm going to watch the other one on Disney Plus instead.
Yeah, I would be curious because I haven't seen the original either, and I would be curious what that film is like, and kind of how they approach this this kind of idea of, oh, you know, you're switching bodies with your mom. Because, again, that film's made in 1976. It has Barbara Harris and Jodie Foster. It's probably even more reserved than this film is in certain respects because, again, time and place that it was made. But I can't help but imagine that film probably approaches the plot device with a little bit more of a novel way of doing it, since that was the first one that came out 4 years after the book was written.
Well, I'll take one for the team. I'll watch it and I'll feed back to you if it's worth watching.
Because you know what? This one is not. at all. Look, I understand if people have a soft spot in their heart for it. I completely get it. If you saw it at a formative time in your life, I get it. I'm of the generation, as you are, Tim, of people who probably like this movie and remember it fondly because as a millennial, that's, you know, things that we saw between, you know, 9 to 16 made a huge impression on us. And I'm sure that this is right up there with something like Mean Girls. But as someone who's seen and liked Mean Girls, this film is not that. It's like what happens if Mark Waters was given something not as interesting to direct, because we know he's a good director. He directed Mean Girls. He's directed some other films that are fairly decent. Mr. Popper's Penguins is not terrible.
Good to know. I've not seen it.
It's okay. I mean, again, it's not much of anything, but it's better than this.
Yeah.
You know, and Mean Girls. I mean, again, Mean Girls is, I think Mean Girls is the thing that Lindsay Lohan will always be remembered for.
Yeah.
And that's not a bad thing to get remembered for.
No.
Compared to this,
yeah.
So what would you give this film out of 5?
Right. So you came onto my show and, you know, we watched a Disney film together of your pick, which was Meet the Deedles. So I'm going to use Meet the Deedles as my benchmark for grading this film, I think, because you came on my show and told me that Meet the Deedles was a great film.
No, I didn't say it was a great film. I like it. I know it's a piece of shit. Like, I'm not fucking delusional. Meet the Deedles is a piece of shit, but guess what? I like it. Like, I'll defend it, but I'm not going to defend it as an objectively good film.
That was a film that really liked to play with its premise in ways that this film didn't. Like, Meet the Deedles went completely the opposite way and is completely batshit bonkers, and I loved Meet the Deedles for that. Did not enjoy having to try and review it, but it was a fun film at the time. Whereas this, as you say, as we both said, doesn't play up with the format enough to be worth watching, really. But at the same time, it's kind of that benign, kind of slightly watchable Disney period. And as I say, I've watched some absolute dog shit for my podcast. Like, this is nowhere near as bad as your $1 Million Duck, your Gus, your stuff like that. So I'm going to be quite lenient on it. I'm going to give it a 3.
Yeah, I'll give it a 3 as well. I mean, again, what's weird is it wasn't trying to do anything with the premise, and it totally should have, right? I think we both agree on that. Like, do something other than this boring non-addressing of the premise. I mean, it's almost like they'd never addressed the premise. It's just like, they're body swapped. Isn't that weird? Okay, let's tell another story. It's like, what the fuck? No, come on.
They really wanted to really get into the relationship between the mum and the daughter and have them understand each other by the end of the film. But to do that, they spent far too long just standing around talking, and it's not what you want from a mystical body swap film.
With Chinese voodoo.
With Chinese voodoo, yeah.
Yeah, no, it just do more. Just do more. Do anything, but just don't do the same shit over again.
Yeah.
I mean, really, you know what they should have done? And this probably would have been a little too much for Disney at the time, but it should have been a son and a mom. That probably could have actually worked.
Yeah, so then there's the gender roles as well. Yeah, maybe that would have worked.
It would probably have been more interesting than this.
Yeah.
I don't know how you would have explained Chad Michael Murray with another man. But hey, I don't think Disney was that progressive in 2003.
No, not really.
Not that they're progressive now, but...
Hey, there was that lesbian character for like 2 seconds in Onward. That's progressive, man.
Hey,
God,
Gaston was gay in Beauty and the Beast, dude.
Sure.
Whatever. Whatever, Lazy McLazy. Disney folks. Always taking the easy way out.
I did see a post on Instagram today that apparently one of the current Disney cartoons has the first openly bisexual character, which, as a bi myself, I'd be interested to see, but I bet it's probably not handled very well.
Yeah, as a bisexual man as well, I doubt it's handled in a way that is true to form and or respectful. So probably a little lacking in both.
Probs.
But until the next time you join me, Tim, what have you been up to?
So, very little, because England is back into lockdown 2 Electric Boogaloo. So I've been doing a bit more podcasting. I have a show called We Played This, where I grill a guest about their favourite gaming memories, which you've been on, and you were an absolutely brilliant guest. We had plenty of spicy hot takes from yourself. And if people want to listen to that, you can find us on Instagram and Twitter at We Played This Pod. And obviously, yeah, I used to do a Disney podcast, which is a really fun relic to watch a guy have a midlife crisis far too early in the arc of the show, which is something we were not expecting. And you can listen to that. And as I said, we actually have a body swap episode of that show called The Swap. And you can find us on Twitter at Podwam, and we're also on Instagram at Without a Mouse.
And as for me, you can find me on Twitter, casualty_Chris. Like Tim mentioned, I was just on an episode of his show. I did share it on Twitter after a while because I'm an idiot and I missed it on Twitter. But hey, I shared it regardless, so it's there. So you should totally, like Tim said, go check that out. Tim was recently on another episode of the Culture Cast last month where we talked about Prince of Persia, The Sands of Time, a film that in retrospect was better than this one.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I preferred this one, I think.
What? Really? I was at least entertained by Prince of Persia.
This was shorter.
Yeah, but length doesn't always denote quality, my dude.
Heyo.
Heyo. I mean, it's true though. Sometimes it's more about the width, less about the length. I don't know how this applies to movies, but maybe it doesn't. I don't know. You don't think Prince of Persia was better than this?
If I'm not enjoying a film and it's long, I really resent that in a film.
Sure.
I have a very short attention span.
I get it. I mean, at least in Prince of Persia, there wasn't a teenager trying to fuck an adult.
Yeah, that we can remember.
Yeah, it's true. Who knows what was going on in those slave dens? As for the podcast, culturecast.com is where you can find it. We're on all podcatchers, both iOS and Google as well. So make sure to check those out. Big thanks to you, Tim, for joining me again. As always, this is, somehow, I don't know if we're going to keep on the Disney kick. I don't know if we can keep on the Disney kick, but we're going to try. I was
going to say, don't feel like you have to just invite me for Disney because I do enjoy other films, sometimes more.
Than Disney films? I don't believe you. Your podcast was called Without a Mouse, sir.
Yeah.
And make sure to check out the next episode.